You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and federally certified veteran-owned small business. I'm your host, Robert Bain, along with our producer, Chris Spangle. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. Thinking of starting a podcast or need to host a public meeting? Let Leaders and Legends LLC be your partner as you look for new ways to communicate your message. Please contact us at chris@leadersandlegends.net. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Our guest today, Dr. Kenneth C. Britt. Now, who is this fella? Besides being super smart and a wonderful friend, and I mean that. You've been wonderful to me.
I appreciate that.
And I'm grateful. Since June 2013, Ken Britt has been a transformative leader at Marian University, Indianapolis, where he currently serves as Chief Operating Officer and Chancellor. In this role, he oversees academics, athletics, mission, enrollment, student life, and strategic growth initiatives across 3 campus locations. Dr. Britt?
Robert?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You want to give a shout out to Greg, since he's here, for setting this all up?
Yeah.
He's just the best.
Greg is the man. Greg Albright has been my sidekick for many, many years, going back to early days, Robert, when you helped us transform the Klipsch College into a national exemplar, and you did a phenomenal job, and Greg just gets things done. I just love that about him, and I'm grateful to be here and grateful to you for all the work you've done for Marian.
Well, you're very welcome. Ken earned his PhD in educational leadership from the the Catholic University of America.
Proud alum. He was a great board chair for our alma mater.
He's Jefferson defined or described Hamilton as a host unto himself, and Victor Smith is right up there. He's terrific, an unbelievable leader.
Yeah, well, we're honoring Victor. I don't know if you knew this. We're honoring Victor at our annual gala at the JW Marriott this fall. You know, we honor a community leader.
That's right.
Who does a phenomenal job or has had a great legacy in our community. And we're just extremely proud to honor Victor here in just a few months. So we're pretty excited.
How did you matriculate to Indianapolis and to Marian University? Because I don't believe you're not from here, as I recall.
No, I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania. Just a low-income pagan kid that joined the Catholic Church and just really had a great career in Catholic education. Like many people who come to Marian, or many investors who invest into Marian, it all starts with Dan Elsener. And he was a phenomenal mentor for me for a couple of years when I was serving as president of a Catholic school system in Ohio. And after a couple of years, he looked at me one day and said, "You need to join my team." And
have you said no to him yet, ever?
No. Who can?
Apparently nobody.
Nobody.
Maybe Mrs.
I mean,
Elsener.
even no, she can't. I mean, they have 9 children and 37 grandchildren. It's quite amazing.
He was one of our first guests, like in the first 10 or 15 for sure. When we launched the podcast in February of 2019, we've posted more than 300 episodes since then. You've been a big fan, and we'll talk about that in a second. 24. How did he convince you? In other words, what is it about him and the potential of Marian that made moving here, uprooting your family, all the things you have to do, you couldn't say no?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I mean, we weren't looking to leave Ohio. We knew that there was a chance we wouldn't retire at the school that we were working at, but we just didn't anticipate that we would leave. My wife was pregnant with our 4th child. We had just finished a major capital campaign, and Dan was an influence in my life during that time and helping give me ideas. And I think that his passion, his commitment to his faith, what he was trying to do to make Marian University, this great Catholic university in this great American city, was extremely infectious. And I said yes pretty much immediately when he said, "You got to join my team." And he said, "Well, we'll figure out the job and the timeline," because there was no job offer, opportunity. It wasn't like I applied for a job. He just said, "Hey, I need you to join my team." Took my wife a little bit longer, obviously being pregnant. She didn't want to uproot the family. But I brought her over to Indianapolis. She met Dan and Beth, and next thing you know, she looked at me and said, "I just hate you. We have to move." So it's been a great 12 years. I mean, it's gone by so fast, but Dan's vision, courage, commitment, ability to do big things, to be part of that was honestly at the stage of my career, I couldn't say no. To work alongside, what Mitch Daniels calls the best college president. How could I say no?
Let's talk a little bit about Marian. So obviously, as the listeners to the podcast know, I grew up in Indianapolis. Marian was a sleepy.
It's a good way to describe it.
How about well known, but certainly overshadowed by Butler for sure.
Yep.
Butler had been around for a long time. IUPUI. Then you had at the time Indiana Central. How did Dan Elsener? How did he wake up the echoes? I hate to cross Catholic metaphors, but what was the potential, and how did he go about brick by brick building it up? I mean, what a Catholic liberal arts college as an engineering school
and a medical school
started, in some part by these significant donations, the Whitcher one for the engineering school. How does this happen?
A lot of it's divinely inspired, to use our Catholic tradition. I think it's all about leadership. And when you have a compelling transformational leader, as you have in Dan, people want to participate through their time, their financial resources, their board involvement, employees. He just has this natural ability to attract people. And I think the way I think about Marian University, I was joking, and I gave a presentation to the Catholic Business Exchange at the end of December. You have about 100 business leaders on the north side. And
it's good people at the OKFC.
Yep. And I framed it as, when you think about Marian in the future, this isn't to disrespect the Sisters of St. Francis of Oldenburg, because they are the foundresses of our great institution back in 1851, teaching our good German immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
But when the history is written, you're going to have before Dan Elsener and after Dan Elsener.
Right.
And I think, we've seen 3 phases of his leadership at Marian, and I talk about it in 3 phases: Marian 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. I think that Marian 1.0 was the most critical time period because it was spiraling down. It was threatened by its very existence. I mean, it was going to go away. And the board
legitimately was going to go away.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the board had secret discussions about selling it to a developer or to another university. And the board took one last shot to hire a non-traditional president. And that was in, late 2000, early 2001. And I think Dan's first focus was, hey, we have to get this stabilized. We have to get Marian College stabilized so it doesn't, the gift that it can offer Indianapolis, the larger Indiana community, certainly the Midwest, is too important. We can't let this Catholic education just go. So I think that Marian 1.0 was just convincing everybody that this is important and worthwhile, and we're going to stop the decline and change the culture. And that's what he did, during that Marian 1.0. And it was Marian College at the time. And a lot of great people that have come through there and worked there and dedicated their lives. Marian was able to, pull together and through Dan's leadership. So I wasn't here during that first phase. I came in Marian, that second phase of Marian 2.0, but I think that was his gift. No one can say no to Dan Elsener, right? So people just kept coming, and he would invite them to participate, and we got it stabilized, and then we transitioned from Marian College to Marian University.
And what is the difference?
Well, Marian University is a thriving enterprise. I mean, it was from a mostly undergraduate liberal arts college to a university, and that transformation that offered graduate programs, particularly the biggest at the time was the introduction to Indiana's second medical school, which hadn't happened in over 100 years. So we broke that.
And were you there when that was launched?
I came, yeah, right. We cut the ribbon on the building and opened my very first summer. So it was a.
And is that just an Elsener idea? Did he go to people and say, this is what we can do? Or did people come to him and say, this is what we need? Combination?
Yeah, I think it was a combination. I mean, Dan served on Ascension Health's national board. He served on St. Vincent Health's local board. You had Bob Baining at the time, who was obviously in the legislature, but he was serving on Westview in their board, the old Westview Hospital, and that was an osteopathic hospital. So I think all of the hospitals were coming together and saying, "Hey, we can't. We're too large of a state to only have a single medical school." I have 2 degrees in the state of West Virginia, and there are more people in Indianapolis than the entire state of West Virginia, and they have 2 medical schools.
Surprised Notre Dame never started one?
I don't know why they didn't start one. Maybe it was the relationship they have with IU School of Medicine.
Because as a Catholic university, Marian's doesn't just have geographical competitors, right?
Right.
They also have, I hate to say religious competitors, but there were more than one Catholic university, Catholic college in Indiana. So it wasn't like, obviously you have Notre Dame and South Bend, but there were others.
Sure. Yeah, there are a number of Catholic universities in our state. I think now we're the second largest, next to Notre Dame. Dan Elsener likes to joke and call Notre Dame Marian North, which is pretty funny because
we're growing like him.
Yeah, we're growing faster than Notre Dame, but I mean they're intentional about their size. So we're well over 5,000 total students. During Marian 1.0, we were fewer than 1,000 enrolled students. So, we've just exploded. And now we're going to welcome yet another record freshman class this fall, despite the challenges that higher education's facing. The community and the market is telling us that they want Marian University to thrive, and families want their children to come there.
I've read several articles, actually, that have been published, I'd say in the last 6 months, so not necessarily related to Donald Trump's win in November 2024. Religion is making a comeback. Catholicism is making a comeback among youth. Is that something that, and I want to get to Marian 3.0, but is that something you're seeing both as an academic and as an executive at the university?
Absolutely. I mean, I have 4 young children, 4 daughters, and I see the friends they run around with. I see the students on campus. Just as one example, we have an RCIA class on campus every year, and I spoke to that group. As you know, Robert, I joined the Catholic Church when I was in college, so that's a great age. So I love to share my conversion story with them. And we've never had as large of an RCIA class. They call it OCIA now. I don't know why.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, but we're going to still call it RCIA. But
yeah, we're Council of Trent people here.
There you
go. So it's all old school.
But it's the largest RCIA class that we've ever had. So there is a hunger for these young people to experience God's goodness and grace, and they can see the challenges of, the materialism and the real world and all the issues that students and young people are facing today. So it's really encouraging. I mean, I love to see what's happening right now.
As a scholar, do you see that as something fueled by social media, from a positive and a negative standpoint, and by that I mean there are some really cool, fun Catholic accounts on X.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of cool,
and there are a lot
accounts.
of rather salty accounts on X. Do you think exposure to both of them, and there's Instagram and all the other stuff too, exposure to both is helping spur this renaissance, or is it something else?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if I'm a religious scholar that can handle these questions, but just as a consumer of media and just seeing the young people that we serve every day, I think a lot of it's just boils down to relationships and authentic relationships, and challenging the narratives that we've seen over the last 6 to 12 months, particularly with all the issues, whether you're on the right or the left, all those stereotypes and issues that are what I'll say going against traditional values, I think has surfaced and is fractured. And I think the students and young people that we serve and see in our community, they know that it's, I don't want to say fake, but there are challenges with that. And there's nothing wrong with good traditional, I'll say Catholic values. And there's a renaissance with people coming and flocking to that because they see the goodness and they see the opportunities that it provides them in terms of peace, right, in their heart and the love. And it's about supporting the community and making it a better place. And those are all great things. So social media certainly can contribute to that. There are a lot of really strong Catholic podcasters out there. But generally, people like you that are really making a difference in this community that happen to share the same values and traditions that we do. It's just, you're not out there running around every day saying, hey, look at me, I'm a Catholic, but you're saying, hey, look, we need to make this world a better place. It just so happens that you have the same faith tradition. So it's been fun to see.
I am a failing Catholic, as I describe myself. I try the best, realize that I don't measure up, and then try the best the next day.
That's all we can do, right? I remember when I joined the Catholic Church, this is what I shared with the students every year. The priest that led our RCIA class, he said, look, you're going to go through a conversion. You'll be confirmed Catholic, but you never stop converting until the end. And every single day. I mean, that's what we're doing.
Extreme unction is the end of the...
Yeah.
You're listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relation enterprise. I am your host, Robert Vane. We are joined by producer Chris Spangle and our guest, Dr. Kenneth Britt, Chief Operating Officer and Chancellor at Marian University. Before we get back to 3.0, is there a particular Hoosier leader and or legend you admire most, not named Dan Elsener?
Not named Dan Elsener? Oh, this is a hard one. You've had so many incredible guests on your podcast.
Been very lucky. Been very lucky. Very blessed.
I mean, I think that Mitch Daniels always comes to mind. I'm not a Hoosier, so over the last 12 years, I've had a chance to get to know Mitch and see him, the transition that I learned about when he was governor, because I wasn't here at the time, but transitioning into academics is a very difficult thing to lead a major national public university. He did it remarkably well. Jim Morris, I got to know Jim as well, the most kindest Hoosier that had a major influence on this city. Michael Browning also had a major fingerprint. I love getting together with Michael. He's just an amazing person.
He's a true patriot.
Yeah.
For both his city, his religion, and his country. Yeah,
just incredible. But I mean, Bob Grand, he was one of the first people I met when I moved here.
I love it.
And yeah, I love Bob. And, I was on a fundraising visit and he just said, hey, Ken, I didn't go to Marian. I said, I know you didn't, but, we need your help. And he's been very supportive of Marian University, particularly with the Klipsch College, because his friendship with Fred Klipsch. Fred has been a great resource for me personally, just as a strategic thinker and helping me continue to grow in my leadership. So, I could go on and on. They're just so Claire Fitting Green. What she's doing now, and I've gotten a chance to know her over the last 12 years. I've been heavily involved in the iLab work for the apprenticeship program.
Yeah, she's legit highly intelligent.
Oh,
like
she's
remarkably intelligent.
and just so driven, quietly driven. I mean, she's a force. You know, she's going to pull people together, and um, I mean, we have so many Hoosier legends
I've
that
had everybody on the podcast, everybody you mentioned except for Claire. So I guess that's my task
that's a key.
coming out of it. You mentioned Marian 3.0. What's that?
So we are one of the fastest growing universities in the country. I think we're the fastest to grow from a college to a national doctoral research university. And that's Marian 3.0 is we will become Indiana's next R2 institution in 2028. That's going to happen. It's already, I mean, we're already prepared for that.
Explain R2, because didn't IU just get R1 status?
IU Bloomington has always been a Research One university, and IU Indianapolis just became an R1 institution. R1 institution is just, they do a lot of research and they graduate a lot of doctoral research students. So it's $50 million a year, which they eclipse, especially through the IU School of Medicine,
right,
which does a great job here for our city, and more than 70 graduates. So that's the definition of an R1 institution. So that is Marian's moonshot. The president talks about the moonshot.
Mm-hmm.
That's our moonshot. We're going to be an R1 institution, and we will become among that group. And it's going to happen. We'll see at what timeline it's going to happen, but it will be there. And Marian needs to be an R1 institution and graduate and provide the talent that our community needs.
Tell President Elsener to read the book, if he hasn't read it, American Moonshot.
I will.
By Douglas Brinkley. It's all about Kennedy and getting the space program up and running and really cooking. I know you love history. You would really enjoy it. It's terrific.
That'll be my next book.
The Fred Klipsch Educators College. So I did some PR work for it. You and I have had multiple conversations about it. I'm going to say it was your baby.
It was.
You were the founding dean.
Yes, sir.
That has had so many interesting permutations. In other words, from Educators College to emphasizing so many aspects of Indianapolis and Indianapolis society in the world of education. The Klipsch College, what does that mean to you? And how can it make a difference outside of the classroom, through the classroom?
Well, it's a great question. And it is something that when I look back on my last 12 years at Marian that I'm extremely proud of, to be the founding dean of something that was so transformational and remarkable that everybody that we talked to said, you just can't do it. You can't close the School of Ed and reopen this new college that will increase talent and increase in numbers and make sure that they have an impact out in the community with a residency. And we did it. And we've had great partners along the way to help us do that. It wasn't something that I just did, but collectively we did it. And it was amazing to treat teachers as they need to be treated with the nobility of the profession, right? It's something that I call it stiffening up our backs as educators. I mean, I'm a trained teacher. I taught in high schools. And, we don't always feel supported. And one of the major changes outside the classroom, I think, that we wanted to make was to do the teacher signing days for students who were going to make a commitment to transform the world through education. And we were going to show the community, again, I mean, you were a big help for me on this, is to get the word out and to show these teachers that they have the most influential impact on students' lives as anybody outside of a parent. And in some cases, they're replacing a parent, especially in our community. So when I went out in the community and started recruiting students, a line that I've used consistently was, you don't have to be famous to be remembered. You will never forget your favorite teacher as long as you live. None of us will. Sometimes they're a grade school grade school teacher. Sometimes they're high school. Maybe they're the college professor, but sure enough, all of us have a favorite teacher. And you think about that, how much power and influence is that in an educator? So that was something that we really were committed to, and we've pushed on that very hard. The other thing that we wanted to do was to look out into the sea of existing schools and teachers that were out there to help them transform their existing classrooms. So I call it both sides of the coin. Side one is talent development, recruitment. Side two is how can we help support the existing teachers and school principals that are out there. And we've been so blessed to serve more. This year alone, we will have served more than 30,000 students across 80 schools. And the impact that we've had, particularly through literacy and student support, is incredible.
We worked together on an issue, on a initiative, probably a better word for Marian, about teachers representing students by, in some ways, looking like their students. So the dearth of Black teachers, Black school leaders in the inner city has been a problem for decades.
Yes, sir.
Marian stepped up, and I wouldn't call it a no-win situation, but a tough win situation, depending on how you define win. And I know that you and Dan Elsener have been talking about that for years. Why that particular push when you could have chosen 5 to 10 others, including veterans, which I know you did as well?
We did. So you have to look at, first of all, the state of education in the inner city. And if you just look at the percentage of students of color who go to those schools versus the percentage of teachers, there's a big gap. So, I mean, that's okay, fine. You can talk about it. You can ignore it. We chose to talk about it, and we chose to bring that up because we looked at the research. When we redesigned our School of Education, which is now the Clips College, we found that students who are taught by teachers of color do better academically. And it's not necessarily why you think. It's not just because of the color of their skin. It was because of what they call expectation theory.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a Black male teacher teaching in IPS, as an example, those teachers expect more of their students than white teachers. So we wanted to put in front of the students educators who are extremely talented, who are going to get the best outcomes from those kids.
And do you have as a kid, forgive me, but do you have as a kid, as a student going, he looks like me, she looks like me, I can do this?
Sure, yeah.
If they did it, I can do it, because now I have a role model right in front of my face who proves by his or her mere existence at the front of the classroom that this type of success is possible.
Yeah. There's no question about the identity of someone teaching and creating that immediate sense of belonging. I mean, that's been our culture going back to the beginning of time. Right. That's why when you have the Catholics that moved to the United States from Western Europe, they set up these ethnic parishes. Right. You got the German parish, the Irish parish, you got the Hill Irish, you got the Low Irish, you had all of these different subgroups. And that's just natural for us. So certainly students in our community are no different. I mean, when they see somebody that looks like them, that's a teacher or a principal, they say, oh, I can do that. I think it's really because I've gone through every local public high school to recruit students, every one of them, and still do. And
how do you get received?
Very well received. They call
different
me
in Catholic or public or charter?
Not necessarily. I mean, you have different cultures in every school. But
it's more school-based than category-based?
Yeah, it's probably more school-based than category-based. But when I go in, students are students, whether they're at Roncalli High School or they're at Crispus Attucks. They want you to show them that you care about them. And I think I try to do that really quickly when I'm in there. So I think they, break down barriers, very fast so that you can have authentic and honest conversations with the students. And I think they deserve that. They like that. You treat them like adults. You treat them with respect, and they will respond. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen an increase in students going into the education profession at Marian, is because we're doing those things. We're treating them, and we're highlighting the beauty of the profession. It is a great job. I mean, the ability to shape the hearts and minds of young people, especially today, a group of students that need it. You challenge students to think about that and say, hey, if not you, then who? And I think students respond because we have very socially minded and very socially active young people today. I mean, you notice it all the time.
Sure.
You only see it when it's a negative, right? In some of the major protests, but they're doing this every single day. So if you can harness that from a positive energy standpoint, they will respond, and they have, which is really exciting.
Let me ask it a different way. Do you make a difference not only in how you teach students, but also in how you educate them about society and life? Is it fair to say that Marian University is a traditional Catholic higher education institution?
Well, I think it depends on what your traditional Catholic definition is.
You led me right to my next question.
I think that Marian, first of all, one of the reasons why I remain at the university is because of our Catholic identity. I mean, we're a Catholic university, and that means something to me as someone who joined the church in college. The ability for me every day to wake up and share my faith with students, with faculty, with staff, not to evangelize necessarily, but to help share my love of my faith and to help build this community to a better place. We also do that for the entire population that we serve. Whether they're Catholic, they have another Christian tradition, they're Muslim, they're Jewish, or no faith tradition. It's our obligation, because we are a Catholic university. That's what the sisters gave us. So it's our obligation to teach that. One of my favorite days when I was walking across campus and went through Alumni Hall, which is where our student union basically is. We have Chick-fil-A, and I went over to get a milkshake. And I stopped and I saw these students studying what looked like complex materials. And I was a math teacher, so I know a little bit of complex material, but this was way out of my league. And I looked and I said, you must be medical students. And they said, yeah. I said, well, where are you from? One kid said, or one student, I should say, not kids, but I'm from California. I said, well, what led you to select Marian? He said, well, I came here because it's a Catholic university. I said, oh, that's interesting. Tell me a little bit more. And he said, well, it's not because of what you think. He said, I'm actually Muslim. I said, really? I said, that's interesting. He said, why did you select a Catholic university? He said, I feel more at peace being at Marian because of your Catholic identity than I do at a public institution. I feel like I can be myself and to have the freedom to appreciate who I am as a person. I thought about that as I walked away, and that's really what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to share the love of what we believe in hopes that people receive it. And clearly this young person did. And, he graduated by now, but he's going to go off and he's going to make his patients' lives better for what he believes because of the work that we did. We're not I don't know whatever your definition of traditional Catholic university is, but
the reason is because there are obviously so many strains of Catholicism that are, let's say, a little bit rebellious, perhaps. I mean, not all of us have dived into the works of Thomas Merton as much as other people, but we should do this with women priests, and they should be allowed to marry, and we should redo our catechism and expand it and all that. And it seems that traditional Catholicism is the part of Catholicism, based on my readings, that's gaining strength. So people are saying the modern world doesn't have what I need. And traditional Catholicism does.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that's a good observation. For us at Marian, I think that we are not trying to be this exclusive, primarily Catholic-driven enrollment institution, like only serving Catholics. And there are institutions out there that do that. If you look at our Franciscan heritage, right, St. Francis ministering to the poor, the vulnerable, right, that has been a primary focus for Marian. And another reason, outside of being a Catholic institution, it's another reason why I'm so committed to being a Marian. I was that kid. I was that kid who, had a mom whose husband left her with, multiple kids to raise on her own. And, we had to be on the welfare system, all through my upbringing. And I was that Pell Grant kid that got a shot to go to college. And we serve many students who are Pell Grant students at Marian. And I'm proud of that. And these are the students who are going to go out and change the world. They're going to be your next generation of leaders. I always tell our students, don't avoid controversy. Don't avoid, hard things. Because if you lean into it, you will be prepared more than anybody else. For students, 21st century scholar students for the state of Indiana. I would have been a 21st century scholar if I lived in Indiana. These are the students, because of the adversities that they faced, that our state will lean on in the future to make it better. They will be the leaders because of the opportunities that they've experienced. And they will be more advantaged than the students who what we perceive as having wealth are, for sure.
You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies. Our guest today, Dr. Ken Britt. He is Chief Operating Officer and Chancellor at Marian University. We have a few more minutes with him before we get to the 5 questions, which I know he's going to knock out of the park because he listens to the podcast. Ken was selected as one of Indy's best and brightest in 2017. He's certainly both of those. The future of Marian, how would you describe it?
Well,
in other words, how can you augment your strengths, repair your weaknesses, and become Marian 4.0?
Well, I appreciate the question. Our future has never been better. But we've never been better positioned to have an exceptionally bright future. And I've been part of the university for the last 12 years. And, I joke with the president all the time and I say, we've done a lot of work over the last 25 years under your leadership, but it pales in comparison to what we're going to do in the future. Marian 3.0 or eventually 4.0 it will be bigger. We will serve approximately 10,000 students in the years ahead. We will have a very complex enterprise, as you can imagine, more programs, more modalities, more locations. Right now, we do have 3 campus locations, as you stated at the beginning. Indianapolis is the largest. Plymouth, Indiana, up in northern part of the state. We have a great leader up there, and Dr. Natalie Tucker, and it's a collaboration with the Poor Handmaids of Jesus Christ. And so proud of the work that Natalie and the team are doing up there. Nashville, Tennessee is going to be a major push for us. I'm very bullish on Nashville, Tennessee. We've been there for about a decade, and we're going to continue to push in Nashville. So that's going to be part of our major efforts in growing programs down in Nashville, particularly adult programs. We've had nursing down there for 10 years. We're going to put our nurse anesthesiology down there in Nashville. And, it's a growing Catholic population. It's young. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's a cool city.
And a strong competitor to this city.
It is. And if you look at the GDP, they've pushed forward ahead of Indianapolis. So we have some work to do. They eclipsed us when we were ahead of them 20 years ago. Now they're ahead of us. So there's a lot of opportunities down there for us to grow. And that's going to be really a focus of ours. And it's going to be exciting to see. It's going to be maybe Marian University of the South. But it's online education is also another opportunity for us. And then finally, This whole idea that Claire has introduced to the state, the ecosystem with
Claire Fitty and Green, who you mentioned earlier.
Claire Fitty and Green with the apprenticeship model, the earn and learn. We've been doing that for about 5 years at Marian.
You have been.
And that is going to be a major push for the future. Where does education start and earning a wage start? It's going to be blended. And we are very proud of the work that Dr. Bessie Rogakos is doing with her team at St. Joseph's College. That's going to be a major push for us as well. So again, just to wrap up, Marian 3.0, or if you want to say 4.0, eventually is a very complex, sophisticated enterprise that is an R1 institution serving 10,000 students. And we're going to do it proudly and boldly and aggressively, and we're going to capitalize on all the momentum and professional equity that we've developed over the last 25 years under President Dan Elsener's leadership.
Last question on this topic before we get to the 5 questions. How important, especially for a smaller university, are partnerships? You have the partnership with Fred Klipsch, graduate of Howell High School, Spangle, in case you didn't know. You have the partnership with CareSource for the rural doctors, which terrific.
Yep.
What are some of the other please talk about the CareSource one if you like, but what are some of the other partnerships that act as a force multiplier for Marian? And really, not that you need a validator, but people come to you, I'm sure, and say, we like what you're doing. We want to be a part of it.
Sure. Partnerships are the key for the future, for us to thrive. I suspect all universities, but particularly smaller private universities. I mentioned St. Joseph's College. We have to have multiple business partners who come to the table. Another a person in the community that I admire is Scott Davison and the leadership that he has provided not only for our community, but especially at One America. And One America is a partner. We provide talent for One America, these students that are going in there, but he has to make sure that there are slots available for our students. So that is a real intentional partnership that we will continue to build. We have partnerships with the healthcare community. Community Health and St. Vincent Health came to the table to help us open Indiana's second medical school. So we have clinical rotations there. We have nursing rotations there. We need to do that across the state. Ortho Indy.
Yeah. When I go in there to get cracked, there's always someone in a white coat that said Marian University on it.
That's right.
CareSource.
CareSource, that's right. So partnerships will be the key. We have a partnership with Boston College. The City Connects program that we have was started by Mary Walsh at Boston College about 20 years ago. I found out about it when I was leading a school in Ohio. I implemented it there. When I came to Indiana, I said, we have to do this in Indiana. It's too important for our young people. So we are the technical assistance center for Boston College's City Connects program. We're proud of that partnership. We didn't have to do it on our own. So, and we have partnerships with the school districts, as I mentioned. I mean, going back to the Klipsch College days with the school districts, they invest in the residencies financially and from time commitment. So the partnerships will enable us to flourish and grow and to have an even deeper impact in this city and the state.
And we don't necessarily want to be Pollyannish. It's fair to say, I would guess, if you want to put it this way, that academia has a star system that makes Hollywood look like a socialist love-in. How do you get past the jealousies? How do you get past the competition to become collaborators, to become partners? Because everyone's fighting for dollars, and it's only going to get worse now. I mean, plus or for against Doge, but I mean, they're yanking money 9 figures from these universities, which means dollars be more tough.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even 7 figures from our university. Right. I mean, every university, I believe, has been impacted. I guess I have a maybe different angle on this. Our faith tradition calls us to be good stewards, have a mindset of stewardship. So if you have a mindset of stewardship, then you have a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. The scarcity mindset prevailing across higher education is there's only a limited amount of pie of students or donors or grants. That's a flawed perspective, in my opinion. I believe that if you do the right thing and you're leading in the right way, you will have enough people who want to step up and help you from a financial standpoint. If you're talking about investments, from a student standpoint, you'll have students that are going to want to come to your university and participate. And you have to find universities that are like-minded, mission-aligned, and values-aligned. If you find them, which they're out there, and we have good partnerships, we're establishing more as we speak, that will come out in the coming months, you can do more together and live out your strengths. So you lean into your strengths. Education is a strength of ours. We're going to lean into that. And we're talking with other universities of how we can help them with their education programs, almost like a franchise type model.
Sure.
Just like the Boston College model. We're not strong in the student support program. We wanted to partner with Boston College, and we've seen the impact we've had on Boston College, but most especially to the students that we serve. We have that primary focus. It's always about building the community. It's always about the students. It's always about making our world a better place. You're going to be fine.
We've reached the point on the Leaders and Legends podcast where we ask the same 5 questions of all of our guests. You want to get in on this? Are you sure? All right. We got to treat him with respect.
We do.
Greg,
I know.
What was your first job?
My first job was, other than shoveling snow,
Sure.
First paycheck that I got was a program in Pennsylvania for low-income kids. You could start working in Pennsylvania when you're 14, and I was a camp counselor in the summers. So that was when I started earning my first paycheck.
What was your first concert?
That's a great question. It's a lot of foggy memories, but every summer it was...
So the Grateful Dead?
I did see the Grateful Dead in Pittsburgh, actually, in 1995. That was one of my favorite shows. But it was either Steve Miller or Leonard Skinner. I can't remember which one because I went to Steve Miller, Leonard Skinner, and Jimmy Buffett every summer in Pittsburgh. I just can't remember which one it was. So it's either Steve Miller or Leonard Skinner. We'll say Steve Miller Band.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That is, we're about the same age. I'm older than you. I'm 57. You're
46.
46. You could suggest any book for someone to read. Which book would you recommend?
This is one that was already recommended by Deborah Daniels, and you had the author. But one of the best books that I've ever read is Fever in the Heartland. That was an exceptional book. Very profound, vivid. I could see it. Every page that I read, I could just see it happening. I think that has to be turned into a movie. But Fever in the Heartland is something that I would highly recommend that everybody in Indiana read. I mean, anybody generally, but especially if you live here in Indiana.
Timothy Egan wrote a phenomenal book. He was a terrific guest. You should have him out. He's been to Indianapolis twice, once in Irvington. Then I think he's already been to Madam Walker.
Okay.
If not, he's coming soon. This is recorded on April 11th. But you should have him out to Marian.
We will. That's a good idea.
And I'm happy to facilitate that.
Please do. That's when I learned about the Fighting Irish.
That's exactly right. Number 4, if you could witness any event in history, be there in person as it happens, which event would you choose?
I think it'd be the votes for independence.
So July 1776 in Philadelphia.
Yep. Second Continental Congress. And I want to see the men that were there knew what they were doing. They knew the sacrifices that it was going to take and what it would mean to their property or their family without having any knowledge of whether or not they were going to win the war. Just sitting there in that room, I would love to just see them cast their vote, look in their eyes. And it's just very humbling to even think about, the sacrifices that they made in the birth of our great nation back in 1776. It's my favorite holiday. I always sing I was in the 1776 musical, and I love that.
Really? High school or college?
College. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have been doing this ever since my oldest is 19. So I sing, John Adams' last song every 4th of July.
You should read the book, The Summer of Independence. I'll send it to
I
you.
appreciate it.
Last question. If you could have dinner with anyone living today, 2 hours off the record, just to chat, whom would you choose?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd probably say Pope Francis.
Be hard to resist, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as a Catholic, to meet with the Holy Father, I mean, just to have dinner off the record and to listen to things that he maybe can't say publicly, and just have that conversation about our faith and where we are today and how we can continue to get better would be a pretty humbling experience.
You have been listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise. We are also a federally certified, veteran-owned small business. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity, you've experienced both, of P.E. McAllister, former Marian Man of the Year, as I recall.
Great man.
Our guest today, Dr. Ken Britt. He's the Chief Operating Officer and Chancellor at Marian University. We are very grateful for your time. We know that you're a fan of the podcast because we get texts. Your friendship means the world to me.
Well, likewise. I'm just so grateful for what you do, your friendship. I love continuing to learn. Not being from Indiana, I've learned so much about our history through listening to your podcast, and can't wait to see who's next up.
Thank you very much for listening to Leaders and Legends, brought to you by Veteran Strategies Incorporated. If you want to contact us about this program or our menu of public relations services, please send us an email at robert@veteranstrategies.com. That's robert@veteranstrategies.com.